All righty, good morning, everyone. We have a little after 9 o'clock here, and we are excited to have you joining us for the Rural Life Virtual Summer Institute. First session out the gate. We are excited to have you joining us. Welcome to exploring your new curriculum through the lens of personalized learning, specifically the Amplify curriculum for this session. My name is Bethany Fillers, and I'm your session host along with John. We are here to support the session presenter, who I'll introduce shortly, offer technical assistance to participants, as well as share the session evaluation and certificate information with you at the end of the session. Please do not hesitate to use the chat to ask questions or request technical support. Also, you'll notice on this introductory slide, and Sarah will talk more about it with you in just a moment, there is a tiny URL at the bottom of the slide. If you want to access those materials via that tiny URL, you are more than welcome to do that now. And at this time, I am so excited to introduce you to your session presenter, Sarah Kitzmiller. She is one of our Rural Life coaches. Sarah.
Good morning, everyone. I'm so excited to be here at 9 a.m. and thank you for being with us this morning. Like Bethany mentioned, this URL gives you access to the slide deck that will be presented to you, so you can come back and refer, as there are links embedded in the slide deck that you will have access to, as well as in your Google Sheets document that I will be sharing with you a little bit later on. But it is currently already on the materials page. So, welcome. Today we are going to be exploring your new curriculum through the personalized learning lens, and this is the Amplify Leaders Edition. So, we've got some specific, exciting things specifically for you, but let's first get comfortable with the platform that we're using so that if we have a question or want to communicate, that we can do that effectively and feel good about it. So you'll have your participants at the top, and you can minimize that. You can have it going down the side. You can double click the screen to go full screen on the presentation if you would like. And obviously the mute button, the stop video button, as well as the chat feature. Now this feature we're going to be using quite a bit in our session today. So just make sure that you can click on that and use the chat, and you will have an opportunity when you click in the chat to use the chat to ask questions, or like Bethany was talking about, request support. I know it's 9 a.m. and I hope, like me, you all have had your coffee. So in this session, participation is key. We have so much to learn from each other, and your voice is needed in this space. So even if you're unsure and you're not really feeling like you want to share, I would encourage you to share as you respond to questions or prompts throughout this training session. Your voice always helps someone else learn. This was very difficult. The goals and objectives of this session. Understand how Amplify supports teachers in connecting to their students, and know how Amplify supports teachers in understanding student needs. Amplify is an extremely deep platform that has lots of information. And so today what I'm trying to do is help you as you walk into implementation year 1 with this product. What are supports that are in place for teachers and students, and that idea of how to personalize this learning for them through that lens of personalized learning. What's there and what should we be engaging with? So knowing how those supports that are in place do start like how we start the school year. I hope that you can walk away from this session feeling confident in. Okay, so let's try out that chat feature. In the chat, please type in the number. I'm going to give everybody about 30 seconds in the number that corresponds to your familiarity with personalized learning. How well do you understand the pillars of personalized learning? 1, no understanding. 2, some understanding. 3, solid. And 4, solid understanding, and my school uses them. So go ahead and type in that number in the chat box. Awesome. I see, let's see, I see Danita's at a 2. I see a lot of, everybody seems to be putting in their response. Thank you. We seem to be falling somewhere between some understanding to solid understanding. So that's excellent, because these are the 4 core principles of personalized learning. And if you've signed up, there are other sessions that the Virtual Summer Institute has to offer that will go in depth with the core principles of personalized learning. But today I'm going to ask you, as admins, as you're always familiar with, being an analytical thinker today, to think about these 4 core principles. So personalized learning paths, teachers customize instruction for each student that is adapted to students' needs, progress, and objectives. Learner profiles, teachers collect and use detailed information to adjust instruction. Competency-based progression, students cover material and reach core competencies and individualized pace. Also, flexible learning environments, schools reconfigure daily schedule and space to complement personalized learning strategies. So again, as we move into the work today, if you will just kind of keep these 4 concepts in the back of your mind and think analytically about how this platform, Amplify, does truly support personalized learning. And I think what you will find and feel, hopefully, a great sense of excitement and relief about is how this product takes care of both the student's personalized learning needs and the teacher on how to manage that personalized learning classroom and what that looks like in a blended environment. This is the last one for a while, I promise. So I want you to take a moment to reflect and connect to this question. What are some of the biggest challenges that you as a leader in your school, you and your teachers face getting to know students and meeting their individual needs? If you don't care, please just put some of the words and phrases, they don't have to be complete sentences even, that come to mind when you think about that question. So what are some of the biggest challenges your teachers face? I'll give everybody about 30 seconds to respond. Maybe a minute, since it's a little longer question. Overloaded with curriculum, focus on standards, student-parent involvement, meeting their needs with limited resources, time and resources. Too many levels, I see that, some above grade, others below. Students not able to access technology at home, and parents not able to help children. Excellent. Resources. Good. So as we move, again, into the learning today, kind of keep those challenges in your mind. I definitely am going to keep those in my mind, because hopefully that we can connect to some of the ways that this product will help support you to responding to those challenges. And I think that sometimes feels impossible as we get the school year started and kids start to come into the building, and we think about everything that has to happen for the school to run successfully. I want you to feel confident that there are going to be components of this program in place that are going to help things and help address the challenges that I'm seeing that you all are referring to. So having said that, time is always a huge factor. Standards, always a huge factor. I saw that today. Leveling within that, so students can appropriately engage with the curriculum, but also become masterful, and what that scaffolding looks like. So when we think about social emotional learning in a place that also honors the work that needs to occur for teachers to do, sometimes social emotional gets pushed away because it's hard to find the time to squeeze it in. And that's why I love this quote. The effort it takes to be more intentional about teaching with SEL in mind is worth it. When teachers prioritize SEL, their classes are better managed and they experience less stress and burnout. That's why focusing on SEL is a win-win for students and teachers. And I just want to mention again, this is particularly on everyone's mind as we come back from the COVID-19 closures. So how to close gaps, that's a phrase I hear a lot. Excuse me. How do we close those gaps that we now have? And how do we build positive relationships with our kids? And so again, this all feels like things that we know we need to be doing, but how can we ensure? And so that's what I love and hope that, again, that we kind of dig into is I hope that you're able to make connections to see how frequently teachers have a chance to support students and their individual needs. And again, that connects to this social emotional learning. And how frequently students have the opportunity to collaborate with their peers and connect with each other. And I think that in the classroom is something that we don't necessarily have the time to think about. And I love how she used the word managed here, because when things are better managed, it makes more sense to both the teacher and the student, and we can sustain rigor. The article that I quoted Mina Srinivasan, I can't say her name. I clicked on this link is a live link here, and it takes you to her Science-Based Insight magazine that is produced out of Berkeley. This would be an excellent article for you to use with your teachers this year, because it goes through the teaching and learning cycle, basically how to interject SEL into the work that they're doing. So I have attached that article here for you to come back and use if you want. So what are the opportunities for teachers to connect with their students in the Amplify platform? And this is the 10,000-foot view. So bear in mind, we're going to dig in deeper to these three concepts so that you can get a feel for what that looks like and what you will have access to as a leader. Patterns and procedures. Lessons follow a daily pattern. So if you have, this is an excellent tool for admins, because if you have assistant principals that are going into 6th, 7th, and 8th grade ELA classrooms, coaches, district people that are coming to watch, what you need to know is that this pattern holds true for all three grade levels. So from an instructional standpoint, when you walk in, the structure of the daily lesson is similar. And we all know that when kids have lots on their mind, they come to school with experiences that may not be so great. The last thing they want to do is overthink about all of the unique things that this particular teacher in ELA is wanting them to do, because sometimes that can just send them over the edge if they're really burdened. And so it's nice to know that over the course of their 3 years in middle school, they will experience and build a deep understanding of this pattern and have an opportunity to not have to worry about what is ELA classroom going to be like. And it builds in time to develop routines. And I'm saying this from both the teacher perspective and the student perspective. I know that there's a lot of new coming down the line when we start back to school, but what's not going to be new is that the main thing at the beginning of the year is you're still going to have time to build in procedure and routine practice with your teachers and your students. And so they're going to be able to get to know each other and also get to know the platform through that practicing routines and procedures together. And that's another way that teachers can create some autonomy around what does this mean for us in my room. So it helps them to personalize and connect to the product as well, because they can adapt it to their own particular needs. The second area, or the second opportunity here, is students are given opportunities to work together and have thoughtful and thought-provoking dialogue. Now, I will say, I have taught this program over the last 2 years and worked in many different counties in the region with this product. And I will say that this is where a lot of times for admins, you'll hear things, and this is, again, a signal that they may need some support from a coach, or a nice longer coach if you have one. Because a lot of times you'll hear teachers say very quickly, my kids can't do this. They're not saying anything. And a lot of times what we need to make sure that we're supporting and having them reflect on is what, particularly when we think about these patterns and procedures, what routines have you set up to make sure that collaboration is possible? Because again, I say this as for you as administrators to know and leaders to know, those routines are established in the very first unit in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So for them to have started with Unit 1, they will have had plenty of opportunity over the course of several weeks of instruction to develop in their classroom the routines and procedures that make collaboration possible. So that's just a little personal story I felt the need to share. Finally, the last opportunity we're going to talk about today that helps connect to their students is this feedback cycle. Students experience daily feedback in both vocabulary usage, writing, peer collaboration, and comprehension. And so they're both getting feedback from the people in their room and the teacher, the facilitator, as well as from the computer. Because when you see this vocabulary usage, they start that at the beginning of their lesson, and they will get immediate feedback, and they love that. As well as with comprehension, as soon as they submit, and writing, as soon as they submit their quick writes and complete polls or solo work within the lessons, they are going to get immediate feedback, which again is wonderful because they'll have an opportunity to experience in a lesson possibly 2 complete learning cycles, teaching and learning cycles. And that's a huge part, again, of those patterns and procedures and the collaboration that help teachers connect to students quickly to see what their needs are. All right, okay, so here we're going to dig in a little bit. The lessons in Amplify ELA follow a pattern and structure that are similar. All students experience the same structure. So I've put some questions here that if you want to use as we're looking at it together. How will this document help me? How could this document be used by teachers or administrators? How could you use this as if you were working with your assistant principals or coaches? How could this document support the implementation process in year 1? So these are all some questions that if you want to kind of come back to as we look at this, I want to share with you the patterns of a daily lesson. And again, this will be linked in your Google Sheets so that you can print this off and share with teachers or share it digitally, either way. Now, you will see here, this is very small print, I realize, but I love this because this is such a wonderful visual to show you the structure of the day-to-day lesson in any of your ELA teachers' classrooms. Depending on the amount of time that you have set aside for ELA, it provides suggested time periods that this portion of the lesson should last. These are the ways in which students work and interpret, collaborate, and work with text. And these are the ways in which they will produce text. So we have work out loud. It might be a dramatic performance or an audio. And also I have a great story about how a child that I worked with, and I'll never forget this, really wanted to stay and listen to Poe beyond the hour-and-a-half literacy block because we had shared several of the Metallica has recorded, putting some of his works to Metallica songs, and the child was just enthralled. So they wanted the session to go longer. So a lot of these, even though they feel unusual sometimes to teachers, once they experience how kids connect to the text more deeply, when they recognize someone working with that text as well, it's really neat to see. So again, they won't do all of these in every lesson. It will usually be one of these colorful arrows here, and then they will pick one way after you experience one. So it would be possibly work out loud, and then they would move into present or write for an authentic audience. And typically the revise comes after an extensive writing has occurred or extensive comprehension work has occurred. They will not experience all of these in every lesson. It will usually be one of each of these, and possibly twice, but absolutely once they will experience one of the collaborate, interpret, and one of the produce. And then you'll notice that at the very end, there is a prepare for independent work and a wrap up. And I want to make one note here, just again, out of personal experience, that you might just want to put in your notes today, is you might want to put a star next to complete solo work, because a lot of times, depending on how long the class period is, I want you to make no mistake that this work here in these dark charcoal area, this is the core of the program. This is what kids should experience every day. Not as often, you should not be coming into an ELA classroom and for an hour seeing students complete a solo assignment. That might be something that they can put into the flex day, and we're going to talk about those soon. But there's other opportunities for them to make up work or to complete any unfinished solos. So that's something to just kind of keep in mind. You don't want the solo work to become what replaces the structure of a daily lesson, because the children will have much more difficult time connecting to the characters and peer collaboration if they're getting more solo work practice, because they could be reinforcing what we know that they are already struggling with. So I wanted you just to make sure again that this document could be helpful, especially if you're doing observation or if you're doing walkthroughs to celebrate teachers getting started in the work. So I love that tool, and I think it's a great tool to have in your back pocket. The next thing I would like to talk about, again, we've mentioned already, is that every grade level starts out in Unit 1 with a Getting Started lesson. And this is where students and teachers work together to establish classroom principles and procedures. And so I'm going to click here to this Getting Started example so that you can see it yourself. So I'm in 7th grade here. This is a 7th grade lesson, a unit called The Red Scarf Girl and Narrative. If I were to go to 6th grade, that would be Doll. And every grade level starts this way. So there's a welcome and then a getting started. And as you can see, this is the teacher view. And I can tell it's the teacher view because I have the instructional guide here. If I click on that, it goes away. And so it says, listen as your teacher reads your classmates' writing. Raise your hand to respond to the writing by answering this question. What is one vivid detail the writer used to capture the disgusted point of view? And so the students will work through this slide deck, and then they will get to talk about, and I love this, these are provided in the teacher materials for teachers to post, but this is the student's mindset. So when we are working together and we're working in this classroom, we need to take academic and social risks. Write about one thing that grabs your attention. Read carefully, observe closely, and share what you think. Show your classmates the impact they're making. Write with the reader in mind and read with the writer in mind. So again, these are provided for teachers to work through. They continue to work with the text, and as you can see, they move into writing expectations. So I wanted to share this with you because this unit has getting to know kids through and establishing those procedures and routines to help with engagement. And again, I prefer to call it engagement rather than classroom management because it helps just create that culture of engagement and help kids get more interested as to why are we even doing this. So you'll see a lot of that if you're walking through the beginning of the year. They go through several of these in this unit. And this unit also develops a connection between the main character of the memoir. So they're interweaving getting to know this character through developing these procedures of working together and writing together and talking together. So if teachers are skipping out, a lot of these lessons don't feel quote unquote essential because they're wanting to get to the meat of the lesson. But in my mind, this getting started set of lessons is some of the most important because it really does help children understand what the expectations are for collaboration in Amplify. So I wanted to bring that to your attention because I don't encourage cutting those out in any way, especially when we're trying to make the school year start feel familiar to kids. This is going to help them understand that, okay, this is just like last year. We're going to get to know what the teacher expects and what we're supposed to do and what are some of the procedures in here. And again, this is just an example of those. I love these writing procedures, by the way. Use the whole time to write. Ask for help once if necessary, then continue writing. Keep focused on your work. Don't distract your classmates. And no talking, trips for water, or surfing on the web. And again, assuming your district, and this does depend on whether or not your district has had one-to-one or has a cart in the classroom or is using only the paper version or a blended version. These are some things, again, your teachers and will need to think about before the school year starts. So it helps keep the focus on those things that we know support them. And it clarifies that expectation in the Amplify platform. So what does Amplify say needs to happen for this to be successful? So I go back to where we were talking about earlier when teachers are saying, and you'll hear teachers say that, you know, I can't get my kids to talk, or I don't understand why they're not understanding what we're supposed to be doing when we're writing. And in some sense, not always, they either need to be redirected to these procedures or reminded, or maybe those lessons got skipped because they didn't understand how critical they were. So I wanted to make sure to bring that to your attention. And then finally, collaboration. Close reading and interpreting text. Students read analytically to build content knowledge and analyze writers' intentions, choices, and claims. Through a wide variety of activities, students unpack the text by analyzing evidence, discussing, collaborating, working visually, all that we've talked about. So they are given time to do this. They are to be talking with each other about this. And again, that can feel chaotic at first until they get used to the expectations. Develop and present ideas. So they share strong pieces of writing or strong evidence, role play a character from the text. There's opportunity for Socratic seminars, discussions, performances, or if they try on a writer's style that they've been reading, which I think is one of my favorite ones. And teachers can utilize the Spotlight app to share the students' work, which is a great tool. So remember that patterns of a daily lesson document. Students experience both of these at least once in every lesson. And that again is assuming that the solo work is not taking over the day's instruction. Part of the Getting Started unit, another strength of it, is it also provides guidelines for students to work together. This easily could become an anchor chart for your teachers that you might even say that you have an expectation of seeing around to help them understand how they are to engage, what they should be saying. how they should be talking about work that they're sharing. I just felt like this was a great support for both teachers and students, because especially with middle schoolers, they don't want to look like they don't know, and they don't want to look stupid in front of their peers. So if they have a set of questions, even if they understand how to talk to each other, sometimes this just helps eliminate a lot of unnecessary communication so that they can get focused more quickly. And then feedback. This to me sounds magical. It sounds magical about the platform, but it's built in and it works and it happens daily. So students experience computer feedback daily. So if they submit a quick write, they will instantly know how many words they've written. They are immediately told how many words they've typed in their quick writes. And then the Classwork app allows teachers to individualize feedback to each child in their classroom. I'm going to show you a little bit of that here in a few minutes. And then in the reporting app, teachers can see how often they are providing kids with individualized feedback. So if you were worried as a teacher that you couldn't remember, did I just respond to those 5 kids that I was sitting in a group with, or did I take the time to go back during planning and give everyone a comment? A teacher can quickly pull that information up and have access to it. And admins, principals in the building and assistant principals in the building, through the onboarding process, you will receive access to your admin login. And you will also be able to see in the reporting app this information on your ELA teachers. Administrators can see how often teachers are giving feedback in their login as well. So what that means is if you are doing an observation, for example, a formal observation, maybe with the team model, you can go in to your admin login and see how many times this teacher has provided individual student feedback. You can see that by the student, by the teacher's class. So if you go into their login, you will see how many minutes the teacher has been in the program, how many comments the teacher has provided for each child in that class period. The teacher can see this information as well. So it's kind of a transparency that's just built in. So you'll have the ability to see that information as well too. But really, for a teacher, and how I've used it when I've taught, is it helps me hold myself accountable to making sure that I have provided feedback to every child in the classroom. Because sometimes if I have papers to fiddle with, it's harder to keep track of that and be as accurate. This, without a doubt, allows me to see that. This is just an example. I figured you would want to see what that would look like in writing. So this is an example of that. This is what feedback in writing looks like. The teacher or student marks a part of the student's writing for the student to experiment with. And the teachers come in and said, you really sounded like you didn't like this. Can you show me why it was gross so I can feel it too? Student completes writing assignment below the original writing response, and then is able to compare the original version to the revised version. And what's amazing, guys, is that you can see this in their portfolio. So it saves both versions in the portfolio for the student as well, so they can see their growth. And it really is a great tool for growth over time to see how children have grown. And you'll see here it provides as well the number of words. And so you can really, even as a very simple target, to keep things simple, it might even be to make sure that when we turn in a quick write, that we target 150 words. And that could be your feedback that teachers provide individual comments on. That could be their goal when they first start out. Like I said, you can make this as simple or as complex as you want when you start, but since that word count is provided, it gets them used to seeing that feedback and knowing what to do with it. I love anecdotal stories. Sometimes maybe I love them too much. But I wanted to share with you a quote that I collected from a teacher that was using this product in Hawkins County in 7th grade. She said, as a 4th grade teacher, I'm able to make better instructional decisions for my kids because I'm not having to plan what kids will be using. I'm able to build stronger relationships with my students, and this truly helps engagement. And again, I want to say that social emotional learning has been like one of those things that we would get to if we got to it. And how many of us know our teachers were really struggling with just developing their own units and finding texts that plug into the topics and really heavy burdens they were carrying. The thing that I hear over and over again is that they are allowed to make the kind of connections with kids that matter, and that can be the work. So I get excited, especially knowing that we've had extended time being closed with COVID-19, that we're going to be able to give teachers this tool to support their ability to do what they do best. All right. The last kind of way we're going to look at Amplify through the lens of personalized learning is opportunities for teachers to understand student needs. So how does Amplify support this? Teachers are given several ways to differentiate Tier 1 instruction. And just like we've been talking about, in Tennessee, we've had RTI, and what's happened is we've had wonderful success lowering the rigor down to meet the child where they are in the Tier 2 and Tier 3 classroom and see them grow, which is wonderful. But what we've had a harder time doing is understanding and being able to provide scaffolding for kids to reach mastery at the grade level, because we want to get really good at that, right? We don't want to get really good at lowering the level of Tier 1 instruction so that kids can master it. We want to get really good at providing the right scaffolds for kids to master the content. And so these are some ways in which they do that. Lesson differentiation. The teacher can provide more support for students while teaching, and this is the beauty of it, without the child knowing their level has been adjusted. And I have experienced this in a classroom where there were several children that were used to being pulled into small groups from their peers to a teaching assistant possibly, and those are always wonderful things to have, teaching the money to support teaching assistants in ELA classrooms to help kids. However, in middle school, due to their own middle school development and mindset, just where they are, in some cases it can be really detrimental, right? Because they know they're getting more and everybody in the classroom knows they're getting more. Well, what's great about this is no one knows, no one knows that they are getting this extra scaffolding. And I'm going to show you that as well so that you can see that for yourself. Oh yes, Danita, I'm excited about the tier. I'm excited to show you, Danita, about the Tier 1 differentiation. I do think it's overlooked, and I think you're going to see how this really does help teachers consider this more frequently, and how the kids can just, the level is adjusted and nobody knows. I love that. The Classwork app, where individual data reports are housed and can be printed. Leaders, coaches, whoever, teachers, whoever's in this session, this is a huge support for your SPED teachers in the building, because here you can print individual portfolios if you're needing present level of performance, like where kids are, what does their work look like, because like I said earlier, this really does house all of their writing for the unit work, for the lesson work, and it really does show growth over time. So there's great information there, and you definitely want to make sure that your special ed teachers have access to this, because they'll be wanting to print this information out. And then finally, flex days. Teachers use lesson data on a flex day to design support to improve student performance. And again, what's great about the flex day is this is where teachers use their own data to design instruction. And honestly, I like to say, based off my experience, I feel like I had the most autonomy as a teacher using the platform during my flex day. Now, also keep in mind, these don't really start until Unit 2. So they come up pretty quickly, so we'll look at that as well. Daily lesson differentiation. How often have we expected teachers to differentiate instruction in Tier 1? And Amplify does have supports embedded throughout each lesson. And if you will bear with me, I'm going to show you this screencast-o-matic video of what in-class, in-lesson differentiation looks like. I have logged in to the teacher view and have clicked on 6th grade 6A doll and narrative. I'm going to show you some in-lesson differentiation features to support your students. To show this example, I'm going to click on Subunit 2, Get Started. When I click on this subunit, there are a total of 10 lessons. I'm going to click on Focus on a Moment. This is lesson 2 in subunit 2. One of the activities, as you see on your lesson brief, says Spotlight, focus on a moment. One of these features that allows me to differentiate in the moment when I see children struggling, I can click on Differentiation. This allows me to toggle to the correct class. Under the word class here, I would toggle to my class, and I do not have classes, so that's why it's blank here. But when you have your connection to your student services support technology, they'll have your classes listed here. And when you click on your class here, the students' names will show up. If you have not done any shifting, they should all be under core. And from this place, you will click and drag into the support that you believe the children need. Do they need to be challenged? You would click on a name and drag it and drop it here. Once you have completed the clicking and dragging, and you're satisfied with your selection, you click Save. Now back in the lesson, you have some examples. It says, listen as your teacher reads your classmates' writing. Raise your hand to respond to the writing by answering the following questions. What is one vivid detail the writer used to capture what the lunch moment looked like, sounded like, or what people said or did? Based off the level of differentiation you selected here, you can lower it, generally speaking, for all of your students, or you can keep it on the core, which the purple diamond illustrates the core. But again, if you need to differentiate further, you can click here to make sure that you tailor it to each individual child in your class. Another example that Amplify offers for differentiation is in this lesson as well. When we click on the tab 5 in the lesson brief that says Writing, Revise, Focus a Moment, you will see a similar support for teachers. There's your instructional guide. If you click on that, it will drop it down and give you some ways to support your students that way. But if you are looking for on-the-fly support and you are noticing student behaviors, if you click the little hummingbird that says on the fly, you will notice on track, needs support, needs support. Here's the activity. So if you notice that students are stuck, it provides a little bubble of things for you to say to that child to help them. If you notice students are adding to writing by not including precise details, it gives you what to say here. As well as for the on-track students, you click here and it will tell you what you need to say to help support them. This is just 2 of the in-lesson examples for differentiation and how to find them in your teacher login. All right, so I also want to say that once the teacher, this is a huge, I noticed Rodney just put a benefit for teachers that struggle with differentiation or new teachers. Absolutely. And I will say what's huge about this is, again, you will notice that where I saved the changes when I was dealing with the document that had all of the students listed and I clicked and dragged, that once I make that adjustment as a teacher, those levels are saved. So students won't fall back to the core in the next level. However, that also means that if children are moving and are showing proficiency, they may need to be considered. And one of the things that I have seen work well is that if you have RTI meetings scheduled, it's good to kind of have teachers have their laptop and have this information pulled up as well, because then they can make those adjustments so that kids have an opportunity to show that growth in the general ed classroom as well. But again, you can make those adjustments before you start the unit, before you start the lesson. But if you're in the setting where the kids are in front of you, you can make those adjustments and kids don't even know it, which I think is a huge piece. And I love the on-the-fly supports because that's meant for when the teachers are walking around and facilitating learning during a writing or a peer interaction, and they can over the shoulder use those question stems to really help give the just right next step for kids that are struggling. And like you said, Rodney, it does help teachers. And I find that, I have 20 years of experience, and I found that I utilize those a lot myself. Now, the Classwork App features. I can't say enough about the Classwork App. It houses the classroom handed in. It allows for teachers to see the status of work submitted. So if someone hasn't turned it in, they can drop it down and see. It provides individual portfolio reports for every student. And the level tab is also here, the one that we saw in the in-lesson demonstration, that allows teachers to drag and drop students into 5 levels of differentiation. It's a huge feature. And the reason we're not going there is I don't have data, and you probably don't have your students that are registered entitled, or rostered entitled rather, into the classes yet. And when you do, in your login, administrators, you'll be able to see this information. Flex days. This is where, starting in Unit 2, in all grade levels, teachers are given a range of activities, probably every 3rd to 4th daily lesson, where they are responding to student work on needed skills that has been collected over the 4 days of instruction or 3 days of instruction that happened prior. So on that 5th or 4th day, teachers are using activities, and Amplify provides them, that are connected to the data. So how do they know how to place students? It provides data to support instructional grouping. It tells the teachers, you need to consider this. It also has activities for students are provided to reteach skills within the unit students struggled with based off what was turned in prior to Flex Day. So what I love about this is kids are coming to this group work, or coming to the table with the work they have turned in. So it's that extra layer of accountability, but it also helps provide some scaffolding support to get them to mastery. And this is where, again, they can totally design their instruction around the students. And teachers can determine, they obviously aren't going to be able to do all of the activities, but which ones do they need based off their individual class data on each class, on each of their classes data, and also on the individual data of the students. And these are activities listed for students. However, they will need to be assigned to which activities they will complete. All right. So this is some general admin Amplify information that I feel like I needed to share, and I just didn't know where else to add this. As we're getting ready for the start of the school year, as we get ready for instruction, I cannot reinforce this concept enough. Planning, good old planning, is the same as it always has been. One of the best things outside of attending the onboarding session, and guys, I cannot reiterate, that onboarding training you receive from the Amplify platform is essential for teachers to understand how to operate the digital platform. But aside from that, What can teachers do to get ready? And there's plenty, but Amplify suggests in that onboarding training that once they understand the online platform, that the first thing they do is read the text and the task associated with the end of the unit writing, and look at where students are talking and collaborating. What's that work going to look like? Those are some of the best things they can do to prepare. Please don't forget Unit 1 develops classroom procedures and routines. So if you hear where people are saying kids are just not getting this, that might be where they go back and revisit that. A new feature that was just released this spring is that students' assignments can connect to the Google Classroom. It will take them from Google Classroom back to the Amplify platform, but that's kind of a handy feature if your teachers already are using Google Classroom. Administrator login. So this will go live July 1st, and it will give you teacher usage and reporting data. So you can tell in each class period how the average amount of time kids are spending in the platform. You'll be able to see that kind of data. You'll be able to see how often students in the classes are experiencing feedback provided by the teacher. You'll be able to look at the comprehension data, the writing data. Ability you will have as an admin, and this is a new feature that they felt was really important based off the feedback at the end of this year, that you will, as an admin, be able to create logins for others in the building, for special education teachers, paraprofessionals, for example. So if you have some hires, you may be hiring some of those folks right now. If you have teachers that you're not sure yet, don't worry. As soon as, again, you get access to your platform, you'll be able to start adding teachers to the platform as well, so that they can get the ability to see what the student work looks like. So if they're working with kids in, say, 6th or 7th or 8th grade. So I bring you back to this slide because we were using our analytical brain here to think about how this platform, what this platform does to support teachers to employ the core principles of personalized learning. And so now I'm curious, in your mind, how does all of this fit into personalized learning? And what are some big ahas, if you don't care sharing with me? What have you learned today that was important, that you felt like you're like, oh, this is great? Something you're really hanging on to that you learned today. But also, how does this fit? What are you seeing? How does this fit into personalized learning? Please submit your response in the chat box. And also, because we are going to be looking at this later, and I do have your email addresses, if you drop a question, any burning questions that you still have about Amplify, and I know this is dangerous to ask this because if you're like me, you probably have a million of them, please do not hesitate to type it into the chat. I will personally respond to those after this, because I know that we're at that critical time. So if you have any other questions, even on things that I didn't cover today, please feel free to ask those. So I'm going to give you a minute to respond to the question, and I'm excited to see what your takeaways are and how you believe this fits into personalized learning, or how you see it fitting into personalized learning in your building. Yes, I see Catherine just, yes. Yes. Yep, and again, the benefit to every child does vary some, but for the most part, we saw students that were used to not to being pulled out. Their scores improved, I think, the most based off my experience, just because they were not aware that they were getting extra support. And I really feel like the social emotional component of believing they could do that was present with them. And that was inspiring to see. See, Letha said this program would benefit every child. Yes. Differentiation for multiple levels. Immediate help for students when they're struggling. Absolutely. Yes. Concerned about the time I will have to feedback each and every day. And that's something that will be something that teachers will spend and be able to spend more time to feedback, because remember, they are trading having to carry the burden of planning rich, rigorous text and coming up with the rigorous questions that help kids connect and engage with the platform. They're no longer carrying that burden. So it is okay to know that this platform is new, and yes, there's lots of learning, and we're learning this together, but it's okay to start saying, look, we really want you to start digging into those feedback features, because they're not having to carry the burden of lesson planning, or turning those lesson plans into things that face students. Those student-facing components are prepared. Excellent. You all can keep adding those. I'm going to move on. We do have the materials, and so the session materials are posted in the Virtual Summer Institute website. There are resources there that go beyond this PowerPoint, this Google slide. And there's also this tiny URL here, is also something that you can type that will get you those resources as well. And I'm going to click over now to Bethany so that she can talk about evaluation and the certificate.
All righty, guys, we are so appreciative of you taking some time to join us this morning for our very first of 40+ sessions as part of the Virtual Summer Institute. We would like your feedback, and seriously, a 1-minute survey is all it'll take. John has dropped the survey link in the chat, so that link will take you directly to that survey. We've left some time here for you to do that. Reflect on your thoughts about the session. We are always looking to improve, and so your feedback will be very beneficial to us. Also, if you are wanting a certificate of attendance, there'll be an opportunity for you to note that in that survey, and then very shortly after this session, a certificate, an actual certificate with your name, session name, all that good stuff will be emailed to you for your records, for you to share or keep or do with as you need. So again, that link to that survey is in the chat from John Payne, and I'll zip it and give you a second to fill that out.
All right, guys, we are getting close to the end, and we just ask that you submit that as soon as this session, as soon as you can, as soon as this session is over. And I just wanted to leave you with this quote in closing, because I know it's exciting, and there's probably lots of questions that you're getting from your faculty about starting something new. But even the most scripted curriculum requires the teacher to respond to a student's state, their energy level, engagement, and connection to you. The art of instruction demands that we make decisions based on how we observe our students using all of our senses. So I wish you all the best of luck with getting started with Amplify. I know it will be a great year. I'm looking forward to hearing about your successes, and look forward to supporting you in the future. So I hope you all have a great rest of the day, and thank you for your time. It's been an honor. Thank you.